Clear. Donald Trump is welcome here.
This is terrible. I can't believe it.
So I would say I give our relationship in terms of grade the highest level of special. Am I allowed to go higher than that? I'm not sure. But it's the highest level of special. They're very special people. It's a very special country. And as I said,
Good evening, a very warm welcome along to Sports Day live from Wimbledon on what has been day 11 of these championships, men's semi-finals day. After 5 gruelling sets, there's been nothing to separate Kevin Anderson and John Isner in what has been the longest semi-final in Wimbledon history. Later, old rivalries will be renewed as Rafa Nadal faces Novak Djokovic. We will, though, have Britain into a Wimbledon final this year with Jay Clark and Harriet Dart taking on Jamie Murray and Victoria Azarenka in the mixed doubles.
Hello there, I'm Will Perry with the sport away from Wimbledon. England will have to get themselves up for tomorrow's third place playoff game with their second best World Cup finish on the line. And Britain's Geraint Thomas stays second overall after stage 7 of the Tour de France.
Yes, good evening, welcome along. Novak Djokovic up against Rafa Nadal. That is a final in itself, isn't it? But what a tussle we've been treated to in the first semi-final out on centre court. Kevin Anderson up against John Isner. 5 gruelling sets. It is 14-13 now in the...
What are you up to? You think I don't know what you're doing? I know. Those spines won't protect you. You're mine. Now where are your eyes? Aha!
My way, let it be known. That very same day, according to this indictment, the Russians began their spear phishing, and 76 email addresses at the Hillary Clinton campaign domain were targeted.
I think we have a clip along those lines. Let's listen.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
That was the then Republican presidential candidate.
I think they were listening.
During the course of the Democratic National Convention when he said those words. Glenn Kirshner, you're a former federal prosecutor. Tell us your reaction to this indictment.
So, Wolf, first of all, I think we need to take a step back and talk about what an indictment is and what it isn't. So, as a federal prosecutor for 30 years, I spent countless hours in grand juries investigating and indicting criminal cases. An indictment is a determination by the grand jury that there's probable cause to believe these individuals committed these crimes. We all know that when and if we manage to get our hands on and extradite these folks and put them on trial, it will be a much higher standard.
But you don't think that's realistic?
I think it's unlikely because we don't have an extradition treaty with Russia. Of course, the president could ask that these men be sent to us for trial, but we could all speculate how that would end up. But more importantly, I think it's little known that there is a Department of Justice policy that says when you're investigating a case in the grand jury, if you have evidence that cuts against the guilt of these individuals, you're required to present it. So on the one hand, it's only a probable cause determination, but on the other hand, these prosecutors, and there are none better than Bob Mueller's team, would have been responsible to present to the grand jury any evidence that cut against the guilt of these individuals. And yet, what did we see? We saw an indictment returned. The second observation about grand jury indictments that I'd like to make is this is yet sort of another intermediate step. The president's lawyer can certainly say he's fully exonerated by this, but I can tell you as a career prosecutor, when we investigate and indict the larger cases, for instance, the RICO cases, racketeer influenced corrupt organization cases, it is entirely usual that we return indictments in batches. We either batch defendants together, we batch related offenses together, and I think, that is what we're seeing here, and I think it can be fairly observed that, this is yet another nail in the witch hunt argument coffin, and there are more indictments to come.
It's interesting. The White House Deputy Press Secretary, Samantha Lindsay Walters, just issued a bunch of statements to the pool of reporters traveling with the president right now in the UK. Among other things, she says, as Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein said today, there is no allegation in this indictment that Americans knew they were corresponding with the Russians. There is no allegation in this indictment that any American citizen committed a crime. There's no allegation that the conspiracy changed the vote count or affected any election result. And then she says today's charges include no allegations of knowing involvement by anyone on the campaign, no allegations that the alleged hacking affected the election result. This is consistent with what we've been saying all along.
And I think that's exactly why, in many respects, these indictments are a gift to Russia. These statements show that the president and his team are so narcissistic that they're focusing on what these indictments aren't. They're not indictments against the president. They're not indictments against his inner circle. What they're not speaking about in their statements, and the GOP made a similar statement from their Twitter account, is the fact that Russians attacked our country. And the president went to Brussels. He refused to call the Russians an enemy. He called them a competitor. He's going to meet Vladimir Putin. And I think that Putin is actually happy these indictments came out, because there is a very strong chance that the president is going to continue to apologize to Vladimir Putin and say, I don't believe the Justice Department, I'm sorry these came out when they did, instead of saying we have incontrovertible evidence that was so clear that we indicted members of the GRU, like President Trump did back in March, and say that these are the consequences for your actions, rather than saying, all right, I raised it, he said he didn't do it, and walking away.
Where's the president saying, by the way, great work of the Justice Department for being able to track this down? I haven't heard that.
While, we would expect the president to say this, I don't think Mueller really cares. I think it's important
No, I don't
to know
think
that
he does.
Mueller, we didn't see him now in these two huge indictments, the announcements of these two massive indictments. We have not seen Mueller. It's always been Rod Rosenstein. And that's sort of the position I think that Mueller is going to continue to take. We may never see Mueller speak on this. The other thing is, this is an important day for the FBI. It's an important day for the Department of Justice. People who have worked years on this case should feel some vindication, and they probably do. This was a big investigation for the FBI. This is their intelligence. This is their work. And they are, despite the fact that the president continues to call this a rigged witch hunt, this is the important stuff that's going on in the special counsel.
And it may just be the beginning. Carrie Cordero, what's your analysis?
Well, I think there's a few different